You are a guardian angel and designer. Did you get what the f is you talking about, man? You are not from Harlem. Why do you keep thinking that you are from Harlem, bro? You are not from Harlem. I did not grow up with you, man.
I was the CEO of Diplomats. I made Diplomats with him. I was with him for every bit of his journey. I held him down. I took that position of holding him down.
You was a fan. You begged us. You are a fan, nigga. A fan. So you gonna sit around and act like you've been around all this Harlem shit and everything. You ever see somebody from Harlem try to act like they from Harlem so bad that you gotta keep saying, I'm from Harlem? From Harlem, know who's from Harlem. You don't have to keep saying you from Harlem.
What if your understanding of Jim Jones was entirely fictitious? What if the person out here who says he created the map of Maze and Cameron was actually simply a huge admirer who pleaded his way into the circle? What if Jim really owes them everything? When Dipset was invincible, do you recall? When the entire game was closed down by diplomatic immunity. Imagine this now. What if the man demanding credit was only a clinger with impeccable timing and the entire empire was founded on a flat-out lie? Jim is now fighting to maintain any attention as the truth bursts through the FOD. However, how long can you pretend before the people who forced you to do so decide to retract everything? You are about to witness a live and unvarnished unraveling of one of hip-hop's greatest illusions. Look, hip-hop was founded on the principle of respect rather than favors. You earn your stripes on the streets. Blocks that you have never been on are not simply claimed. When the limelight wanes, you don't simply retell your come-up tale. Furthermore, you never take credit away from those who truly set the groundwork. However, Jim has been breaking all the rules for the past 20 years. The fairy tale is about to be destroyed by the actual builders who are taking over. The nerve has been sold by him. Jim Jones just claimed to be the chief executive officer of the diplomats he restrained, including Cam and May. It goes beyond simply distorting history. That is blatant identity theft in Harlem, claiming to have built anything without any involvement. It's not merely a lie, it is outright disrespectful, the kind that makes the streets truly tense. And observe how daring he is to use it. As if it were gospel, he speaks it with all of his heart. That is the result of repeatedly telling the same untruth. The fantasy begins to consume you. But the thing about developing a name off someone else's sweat, sooner or later the true proprietors step up to shut it all down. Boom! The energy struck like a blast from the frigid.
Do you remember how we met? Pause. Not met, how you got cool with us? Basically, you heard our freestyles. And you came up to me one day when I was chilling in front of the house. You said, yo, man, I heard the freestyles. Y'all killing shit. More freestyles come out. Y'all heard the new shit you did. Children of the Corn, 12-minute freestyle. Mace, Cameron, Cardan, DJ Clue. Google Bloodshed and Cameron, Children of the Corn, freestyle. Are you at any of these places? No, you was not there, man. You wasn't there.
Cameron's disagreement with Jim wasn't the only one. In 4 words, he erased his entire story. You were a fan of ours. 2 decades of meticulously prepared lies were shattered by that one line as if it were inconsequential. This has nothing to do with hurt feelings or egos. The true distinction between those who build something from the ground up and others who simply latch on when it's already ablaze is what this is all about. Cam didn't simply return the clap. He reminded everyone of Jim's true identity. It's not who he's been acting like. Spoiler alert. This is the point at which Cam completely breaks it down. He sheds light on the true motivations behind Jim's actions. Those who have never actually constructed anything are desperate for approval. They don't ride with wealthy people because they're in love. They act in this way out of a deep-seated fear that others will realize there is nothing real beneath the picture. Jim's entire public persona has been pieced together with stolen street stripes. However, people like that don't come clean when the flaws appear. They simply spread the lies even more and hope that no one looks at the invoices. Guess what, though? With the invoice in hand, the truth suddenly became apparent, and that's when everything fell apart. Dipset was not co-founded by Jim Jones. Neither Masson or Cameron were found by him. He didn't construct any kind of empire. Like a clinger with good timing, he begged his way into the crew after witnessing their mixtapes blowing up. Jim's entire career is turned upside down by this discovery. Each track, each feature, each victory, everything now leads to the same conclusion. A fan who worked hard to gain attention made this desperate move. He held on in the hopes that the 2 rising stars would light on him. The strangest part is that begging is the biggest transgression of the rule, according to anyone who truly understands how the streets operate. Real people build instead of begging. Real bosses create, not pursue. Jim was just discovered to be neither of those things. Therefore, the question of whether Jim Jones merits a share of Dipset's legacy is no longer even relevant. How long? Can you continue to build your career on top of someone else's hustle before the actual architects show up and destroy your leased empire? That is the true question. Respect is crucial in the game, and Jim completely lost it. You can't recover from that type of exposure when the people who forced you to do it all decide to destroy it. However, it becomes more colder. The receipts have accumulated since Jim has been spreading these lies for so long. The proof that is destroying the image he is attempting to project today is his own words from the past. That's the problem. Because it's the truth, true street legends never waver from their story. However, the fakes change it according on the person in the room, and he is always plagued by such contradictions. The internet doesn't forget that Jim has been remixing his origin story for 20 years. And it's not just embarrassing when your former self reveals your current lie, it's career ending for a period. Now pay close attention. Cameron isn't just making irrational charges. With the proof in hand, he is preparing the fatal shot. When someone in the street claims to have receipts, you can bet that something unpleasant is going to happen. And any credibility Jim still had will be completely destroyed by what Cam is about to disclose.
He need to go on a diet. He need to get his life together. He need to go to the doctor and get a physical. He looked terrible, bad body, back ass. He look big around the neck, waist look crazy. I'm body shaming this. You heard? He need to go get his shit together, get on the treadmill, do some push-ups, do something. You heard? Especially for playing with me.
Yeah, listen, man. Listen, man. You were fanned out and you begged niggas to come to your house after you heard all these mixtapes. That's how you got in. Mace actually taught you how to rap. Literally. He taught you how to rap.
Mace taught me how to rap.
You say it. We taught you how to rap. How you ran the whole organization. How you made Diplomat. Yeah, you ain't made none of this stuff. You was a fan. That's how you got down originally. Period. I heard the new shit you did. Yo, you want to come through? Come through. Why? Why are we going to Jomo's house? So yeah, I would bring some bitches over there to fuck sometime. No back maybe.
Check out the tone. Cam is cool, collected, and self-assured. This is due to the fact that he is fully aware of what he is carrying. You don't need to debate when someone's own voice acknowledges the truth. Simply hit play and let the quiet do the talking. Allow that to hit you. Mahi taught him how to rap, not the other way around, according to the same guy who was caught on camera claiming to be the CEO, the backbone, and the one keeping everyone down. Match was not made by Jim. Jim was made by Ma. It's not merely a contradiction. That's a direct admission. Jim himself attested to all that Cam and Match had been stating for years. And that's street justice at its highest level when your adversary doesn't even have to defeat you because you did it to yourself. It doesn't end there either. Jim tells more lies than only Dipset. Additionally, he has been remixing their friendships. Whole history, telling people trying to portray himself as the big homie while broke. Cam stayed in his crib. However, that is not how things transpired. Not even close. You see, those who lie their way to prosperity end up like this. They begin rewriting history as soon as they gain some attention, portraying themselves as the leader, the savior, and the one making all the decisions. However, your made-up stories become weapons when you're interacting with others who truly experience those chapters. They are capable of retaliating against you. The most bizarre aspect of this entire takedown, Jim is unable to defend himself. When your own confession is captured on video, how do you defend yourself? When you acknowledge that someone taught you everything you know, how do you claim to have built someone? This is where things become even more bizarre, though. The people who truly care about Dipset have been watching this circus play out while Jim is out there destroying his own reputation with contradiction after contradiction. They are now taking the initiative to release a game that completely changes the plot. You see, after the smoke clears and the phony, the genuine truth always comes from those who were there. Tails stop functioning. Joel Santana is in the stage. telling people exactly when things started to go wrong, when he insists that everything was good at first. Pay attention to his tone. It's quiet, just the facts, no hype. Exaggeration is not necessary for real ones. They are straightforward.
Mace taught me how to rap, and Cam always made sure I was on every single album he had. He was like, boy, once you figure out how to rap the same way you act in these streets, it's going to work for you. Just keep going. And that's all so I always got to give credit to where credit is due. There would be no Jim Jones if it wasn't for them guys.
This is when the twist comes in. A whole new level of drama is added when Choke No Joke intervenes and validates anything. He claims that Jim had some influence on the team and that people did work under him. Now, it's more than just exposing a complete scam. There's more to it than that. It tells the story of a person who had some actual power but was unable to accept the limitations that accompanied it. Jim wasn't the CEO, but he was also an outsider. He wasn't on the top floor, but he was in the building. As a middleman who wished to be known as the mastermind, he played his part but began altering the storyline somewhere along the line. This is the line that will soon cause the comments to become very polarized. Choke just dropped a bomb. No, joking. He referred to Jim as the muscle behind it all and stated that there wouldn't be a Dipset without him. But wait, let's examine what that actually implies before Jim's supporters start exploding bottles. You are not the brains just because you are the muscles. You didn't start the movement just because you're necessary to the operation. Jim undoubtedly had a significant impact, but his lane was pressure, presence, and protection, not the leadership attitudes, not the artistic vision. Being in control and being important are two very different things. You're currently seeing the formation of two factions according to how closely they resemble the actual story. Jim isn't being naively defended by Jules and Choke. Based on their personal observations, they are supporting him. They are fed up with Cam and Mate portraying him as a supporting role, even though they know he wasn't simply some random extra. This is where it becomes psychological, though. Both sides are acting strategically and providing bits of information. Me and Cam are reducing Jim's legitimate role in order to highlight his exaggeration. In the meantime, Jim's supporters are drawing attention to the facts in an effort to combat the label of just a fan. As usual, the truth lies somewhere in the middle. However, perception turns into reality in street politics. Jim is currently losing badly in the perception game. What's even more bizarre about this whole situation? In the streets, loyalty is strong. True colors emerge when everyone is grinding together, but only when one person begins to shine brighter than the others. And what's going to come to light next will show who has been harboring that secret jealousy all along. No joke, Choke simply turned the entire script upside down. He is now claiming that Cameron was the one who was unable to cope with Jim's achievement.
They know what I've done. Dance around it all they want and shit like that, joking, but they know if I get upset, it's gonna be a real problem.
Get out of here.
But let's be honest about what's happening before you regard that as gospel. Choke and Cam have a long-standing personal feud. This is not merely a haphazard viewpoint. Years ago, this man almost threw hands with Cam for expressing affection for Jim's mixtape. When someone gets upset because you complimented their ex-partner, it's a clear indication of how intimate it is. Choke isn't merely writing for Jim. Devotion. He is acting out of retaliation. Choke is now attempting to portray Jim as the street brawn who kept Cam safe and as the protector. However, observe the times at which these interviews are occurring. In February 2025, Jim just dropped a new CD on the steps of the church. Suddenly, everyone is bringing up the Dipset drama once more. Is it a coincidence? Not even close. Nothing is more effective than bringing up old grudges to get people talking when your career needs a boost. And no joke, Choke, when he still harbors resentment toward others, he makes the ideal sidekick for a rewriting of history. Jules Santana then dissects the entire 50 Cent predicament. However, let's concentrate on what is most telling. Jim did the unimaginable because he was so desperate for solo shine, breached the top street code loyalty during the conflict. Jim took the stage with the operations while Dipset was squabbling. It's none of business. That is outright treachery. There was no strategy behind that move. It resulted from a need for attention and jealousy. Jim had had enough of being confined to Cam's shadow. Thus, he fired a shot that permanently destroyed their fraternity. Secure men don't move like that. That's the energy of someone who is envious.
What's the chances of you, Cam, and Mace getting back?
I don't think it's really gonna happen. We two different type of people. And always have. Competitive nature always been first before friendship. Remember, Cam, my man. It's not.
So it's not you.
I took the position of my position. Cam is my partner. I'm not his artist. I was the CEO of Diplomats. I made Diplomats with him. I was with him for every bit of his journey. I held him down. I took that position of holding him down. I'm not his soldier. You heard? I'm his partner. But in the journey that we had to take, I had to do what was needed. Why I play my position. And that's why I'm able to be here and have a conversation with you, because I did what I was supposed to.
Jim was not the obedient soldier who was exploited. He was the resentful hype guy who failed to fulfill his role and destroyed the entire legacy in the process. Jim has spent 2 whole decades vying for attention and attempting to be the star. Furthermore, he is still so fixated on changing the past that he is enlisting the aid of anyone who harbors resentment to support his narrative. Freaky Zeke, who is obviously attempting to maintain her objectivity, acknowledges that this feud wasn't initially that intense. However, things got out of hand when outside voices began dousing the fire with gas. And who is truly benefiting from all of this drama? The one whose significance rests on allowing old wounds to fester. People go down when they are exposed and have no remaining effective resistance. Very low. To divert attention from the reality that their entire image is failing, they begin to use intimidation, threats, and covert disses. Jim Jones is now going to demonstrate how depraved a guy can become when his lies are no longer effective. Listen to Cam explain it. Cool, surgical, and serene. He's pointing out more than simply personal drama. He's drawing the curtain on trends, patterns that reveal Jim's true nature. Cam claims that aside from his own need for attention, Jim acts without morals, self-respect, or loyalty. Avoid pumping that. The strong man persona Jim has been relying on for years is completely destroyed by this. One anecdote completely destroyed. The street enforcer rep's muscle persona, all of that loud talking, and all of that artificial flexing. Additionally, Cam claims to have witnesses to support his claims. The best aspect is that Cam no longer sounds angry. He seems disinterested. The coldest form of disrespect is when someone stops considering you a danger and instead views you as a clown. Cam is essentially stating, Jim ain't worth the headache anymore cause he's out here making bigger moves while Jim's still stuck in the past. And it's right here, Jim's reaction after being completely revealed, dangers. The final resort is intimidation. When you've run out of genuine ammunition, when all of your lies have been exposed, and when your credibility is in ruins. Jim is implying that he will reveal the secrets of Mahi and Cameron, but be sure to listen carefully to what he doesn't say. He isn't disputing anything they have done to his name. Additionally, he transitions to body shaming when threats fail. To materialize, Jim is telling May that he needs to go to the gym. That's the end result. Because he has nothing solid left in his backpack, a mature man is insulting people from middle school. Jim has fallen so badly that he believes that making fun of Mahi's appearance will make him popular. This isn't a criminal. This street code isn't authentic. This is blatant desperation on the part of a man who is already lost. Here's where the irony lies. Jim claims that he doesn't believe what Cam says and dismisses it as viral marketing. Let's be honest though, who is conducting interviews with Cam Capone, XXL, and any other platform that will make history? The person out here on a full-fledged press tour to remain in the conversation is Jim Jones, the same guy who is accusing others and claiming to be clout chasing. The most illuminating aspect of it all, however, is this. Jim clams up when the interviewer tries to get him to talk about his actual conflict with Cam and Mahi. All of the threats and angry words vanish as soon as someone requests specifics. When your entire reputation is based on dubious lies, that is what occurs. The entire plot unravels when people begin to pose genuine inquiries. When Jim is in charge of the microphone, he is bold, but when someone else takes over, he is left in silence. And the next thing you'll witness is the complete psychological collapse of a man who has spent so much time living in his own delusion that he is now at odds with reality. Listen to Cameron land the last punch now. Long ago, this ceased to be a personal grudge. Now, let's talk about a pattern. Jim Jones has a habit of bringing down anyone who approaches too closely. Artists that support Jim don't level up. According to Cam, they wind themselves in a worse situation than they were in the beginning. That's not being a leader. Leech behavior is that. The most harmful piece, however, is this one. Cam says that Jim has been attacking him and made in the media for more than a decade. This tension is not new. This is an obsession, the kind that only someone mired in the past can give, because only in the past does his name still have significance. This is where the irony suffocates the entire space. Jim claims he doesn't give a damn regarding speculations, claims that his main goals are making money and expanding his business. However, who has been doing consecutive interviews with Cam Capone, XXL, and anybody else who is willing to go on record. Jim Jones is out here consuming drama in order to remain in the conversation, despite his claims that he is too busy to entertain it. This is more than simply a dispute between three Harlem legends about the good old days. This is larger. This has to do with hip-hop culture's genuineness. The distinction between those who gain respect and those who steal it, between builders and biters, and between clout chasers and creators is at issue. The Jim Jones story has evolved into a full-fledged warning, a model for what occurs when you base your entire identity on borrowed characteristics. This conflict wasn't just won by Maki and Cam. They made it public. They dissected every falsehood Jim had maintained for 20 years using his own words, interviews, and discrepancies. You already know this one was legendary if you're still here. Thus, be sure to subscribe, like, and comment. Remember to forward this video to someone who needs to hear the truth. We have only just begun.